Okay, so the story that I'm about to read or interpret is a short story called The Makeup Artist by Dana Tierney. It is the story of a woman who is a caregiver to her daughter and the exciting new job that she takes on after her terminally ill daughter passes. So here we go. My mother, who is beautiful and takes beauty seriously, was appalled at my sister's final makeover. The people at the funeral home had made her face pumpkiny orange, the lipstick too big on her downturned mouth. Breast heaving, my mother gazed into the coffin and announced to the mortuary cosmetologist, "That's not my daughter in there." She held out her hand. "Give me that sponge." The startled funeral director and staff watched as my mother redid my sister's face herself. So, 2 weeks later, I'm explaining to friends, my mother has gotten a job. They try hard to be supportive. "Cosmetologist," they say. "To the dead? At the funeral home where they just cremated your sister?" Okay. Before she died of brain cancer at 32, my sister Dawn was confined to a wheelchair. Confronted with institutionalizing her, my mother drew herself up. "I will not put her in a nursing home. She is my child." She swept back to Dawn's room where she lighted a joint, inhaled hard, and blew the smoke into my sister's mouth until the nausea passed. My mother took care of Dawn for 5 years after she became too heavy to lift, could barely speak or feed herself, and was incontinent. So now I'm a little worried. Has my mother finally lost it? After day 1 on the job, I ask, "How'd it go?" "Well, my very first person was a man who'd gotten run over by a bulldozer, and part of his ear was gone. Nobody knew what to do, but I ran out and got beeswax, and I tell you, it was miraculous." I envision my mother's fingers working on a mangled ear, the results like a restored mollusk. "I think I'm pretty good at this," she confides. At her house, my mother greets me with a little ram's horn furrow of determination between her eyes. I'm startled at the transformation. Normally, my mother floats in her long skirts, sharp-toothed necklaces, and cast-off penny loafers. Now she's in a business suit and naturalizer pumps, leading me briskly up the candy-capped ramp past my sister's now-closed door and back to her own bathroom, where she has assembled the tools of her new trade. I watch her intently arranging makeup brushes according to height, nail polish according to color, and realize the job makes a certain amount of sense. My mother has the pretty woman's reverence for the power of blush and lip liner, and she was a good artist before she became my sister's full-time caregiver. Mama is taking a bottle of Chanel Naturel for her clients. She has decided only Chanel will do. "Honey," she says, "the dead do not have to look like clowns." I laugh as she brandishes a makeup sponge that looks like a piece of tofu. Sternly, she says, "This job is not a trip to the Lancome counter." Okay, I take a deep breath. "What is it like then?" "Well, today they brought in Mrs. Griscombe, and they hadn't found her for 2 days, so she was difficult. Needed several layers of foundation." I imagine my mother bending over an insensate body for hours, primping the hair, applying the lipstick, making Mrs. Griscombe as beautiful as she can be. Very like what she used to do for my sister. But it's different now. There is no soft, "Thank you, Mama." No hand squeeze, no flickering eyelid. Now I see my mother holding a lifeless hand, filing the nails, applying 3 layers of polish, putting the final touch on strangers, clinging to a phantom ritual. Over the past few years, my mother's hair has turned white. Now it's up on her head in a bun wrapped in on itself like a sleeping dove. Touching her own face, she murmurs, "The skin of the dead is like tissue. It tears so easily." Suddenly I remember how in my sister's final days we couldn't keep our hands off of her. Even when we read her the Bible, we hung on, curling up with her in bed, stroking her face, the wisps of her hair. We felt her thready pulse, her heart thudding like an elephant's 6 beats a minute, the hugeness of its animation. And after she took her last breath, how quickly her life was over. She was utterly gone and had turned the color of granite. Even then, we couldn't stop touching her. My sister's ashes rest in a cloisonne urn, and it's just my mother and me and lots of makeup in a quiet house in the mountains. Evening has fallen, and Mama is washing flesh tone out of the sponges, still talking about her day. Mrs. Griscom, I could not get that woman to smile. Took a lot of coaxing just to get a Mona Lisa out of her. But finally, she gazes proudly at her own hands. The family said, "Oh, she looks wonderful, just like she might get up and walk."